going to discuss about superposition. But before we go to the superposition, we'll discuss about linearity property. The linearity property, it has two property, which is the homogeneity and additivity. So the homogeneity says that if we have an input V, it gives us output Ri as the Ohm's law. If we multiply by a constant K multiplied by the input V, it should be the same. The output will be multiplied by the same constant K. Mean that if I have input, I have a system, and I have the input V, give me the output IR. If I multiply the input by a value kV, a constant K, the same constant will be multiplied by the output, same in the output. Now the additivity say that if we have V input V1, it gives us Ri1, and we have another input V2 equal Ri2. Mean that if I add the two inputs, it's going to be the same if I add the two output. If I have V1 plus V2, it should be Ri1 plus Ri2. Mean that I have an input V1, it gives me an output. I have an input V1, it gives me output Ri1. Now it gives me, I put another output V2, it's giving me output Ri2. Now I give the input the summation of this V1 is V2. The summation of these two input, you have to be equal the summation of the output. Summation of the output. So if these two property, homogeneity and the additivity, verify, mean that the element is verify the linearity property. Now we'll talk about the superposition method. The superposition method says that if I have a electric circuit, and the electric circuit has more than two sources, more or equal than two sources. Mean that to find current or voltage of element current or voltage of element will be the summation of the current contribution of the source. Let's say, for example, I have this circuit V1, I have this one V2, so I have this current I1. Mean that this current, since it is resistor, mean that resistor is a linear element, mean that if I apply this voltage only, it will give me I1, and if I have applied the voltage V2, it will give me I2. Now if I combine these two voltages, it have to be the output I is going to be the summation, mean that I1 I1 current contributed by V1 only. I2 current contributed by V2 only. Mean that to determine the current I1, I have to off this source. This source have to be off. Since it is a voltage source, it will be off by a short circuit. It's going to be off by a short circuit. We discussed about short circuit in the previous video. Now it's going to be off by a short circuit here. In this case, I will have I1 here. I will have I1 here. But in this case, I have V1 because I1 is the current contributed by the source V1 only, and the I2 is the current contributed by V2 only. Only mean that I2 is the current contributed by V2 only in the system, and the V1 is the current contributed, I1 is the current contributed by V1 only. Now I have I1, I have I2, the output. When the input is V1, when the output is V2. Now if I add, as we see in the system, the previous, I add these two sources, V1 and V2. It will give me the output I. Mean that the output I is going to be equal I1 plus I2. I1 plus I2. Why I1 plus I2? Because the current I is the output contributed by the summation of V1 and V2 when both are conjuncting. So it's going to be I1 and I2. We'll see some example for better understanding. Here, as we see the previous one, this circuit, when there is only a short circuit here, all the current will be passing here. We have seen, so mean that this one is going to be 0 in this case. Now we'll see the example. We'll see the example, some example for better understanding. Now let's go for the example. Let's say, for example, in this case, I want to use superposition. I'm going to use superposition to determine V. So how many independent sources I have? I have this voltage source, I have this current source. Mean that I have two independent source. Two independent source mean that this one will go to contribute, this one also will go to contribute. So I will have V is going to be V1 plus V2. Well, V1 the current is the voltage contributed with 6 volt. V2 is the voltage contributed by 3 ampere source. Now the first step will off one. We have to off one. We have to off one source, and we have to remember also that voltage source will be shorted, and the current source it will be off by open circuit. We see open circuit, we see short circuit in the previous video. Now let's see. Now I consider this one is the source that is going to on only. So my electric circuit is going to be this one. I will have this one, I will have this one, I'll have this one. This current source will be open because what? Because it is a current source. Now in this case only the 6 voltage is going to contribute it. Now this V is going to be V1. Why V1? Because V1 is the voltage contributed by the 6 voltage, 6 source. Now how can I determine V1? In this case, if I come up to here, we saw different method in the previous video how to determine. You have the freedom to use one. The important to find the value of v1. Let's say for example I use Cavel. If I use Cavel, I will have minus 6 plus 8i plus 4i equals 0. Mean that I will have 12i equal minus 6 come here 6. By the end I will have 6i equals 6 by 12. Now I have this currents pass in this circuit, If I have the currents I can determine v1. How? v1 is going to be equal Ohm's law. I have the voltage, I have the currents, I have the resistance. 6 by 12, which is going to be equal. I have 4 by 3, 6 by 3 is going to be 2 volt. Now here and this one are what? In series, because no current will flow here, no currents. Why? Because it is open circuit. If it is in series, another method we saw, the previous one, which one? Voltage division. Someone who can use voltage division. V1, how to use voltage division? Voltage division, I will have 4 multiplied by the voltage source, 6 divided by 4 plus 8 is going to be equal 2 volt. Mean that you can use nodal analysis here, or you can use voltage analysis, voltage division here. It is your choice. Now I already determined V1. Now let me determine V2. V2 is the voltage contributed by this source only. Mean that this one is going to be off. Since it is a voltage source, to be off it is going to be shorted. So I will have my current source, which is 3 ampere. I will have the 4 ohm. To determine V2, I will have another 8 resistor. This one is going to be this one. Now if I see this source, I have the 8 ampere. Now here it was my source is going to be shorted. Now I want to determine V2. If we see someone who can use different methods. If we realize, we see this one, this 8 and this 4 are what? In parallel. They are in parallel. If they are in parallel, I can use what? I can use current division because I have a current source. So let me use current division. I will have I2 equal, how to determine current division? We saw in the previous video. Current division, I will take the opposite resistor. So I will have 8 multiplied by the current source multiplied by 3 divided by 8 plus 4. 8 plus 4, which is going to give me 24 divided by 12, which equal 2. Now I have 2 here, 2 ampere. But for me I want to determine V2. To determine V2, I'm going to use which law? Ohm's law, because I have the current I2, I have the resistor. So 4 multiplied by 2 is going to be 8 volt. Now I have V2, I have V1. I come back here. The voltage that contributed when both sources are conjuncting, it's going to be 2 plus 8, which is equal 10 volt. So it's like this circuit is like the property of linearity in the additivity, because in the beginning I have the V1, I have this source, I found V1 as output. Now I have this input, I found V2. Now if my system is its input is this one plus this one, So mean that the output have to be the output of this one, V1 plus V2, as we see in the additivity. That is, in this we use current division. Someone else can use nodal analysis. Right? This current UKCL, this current entering, this current is leaving, this current is leaving KCL. Now let's use KCL to see. I will have 3 equal, because this current is entering, V1. In this case is going to be V2, because I am in this V2, divide by what? Divide by 4, plus here is going to be the same V2 in this node, divide by 8. Now in this case you have only one unknown, V2, you can determine. Means that when we reach this case, all the method that we have seen in the previous video, we are going to use them. So that's why I'm requesting before to follow the video in order. Now we'll see another example. In this example, if we see in this example there is this independent source. There is dependent source. If there is dependent source, will not do anything for it. Dependent source is not off, remain as it is. Now we'll off only the independent source. How many independent source? I have this one, I have this one, 2. Mean that the I0, the value that I'm going to find I0 is going to be I01 or I01 plus I02. Why? I01 is contributed by what? By 4, the 4 ampere source. I02 is contributed by the 20 volt source. It's up to you. You can take this one as the one contributed by 20 volt. You can take this one as the one contributed by the 4 ampere source. Now, to determine I01, let me off this one. Since I have to off this one. This one is what? Voltage source. Voltage source is going to be shortage. Now let's draw our circuit. We'll have this resistor. We'll have this current source. I will have this 3 ampere. I will have this 4. I will have this one. We say this, since this one is a dependent source, will not do anything for it. Now we have this 4. We have here. Now we come here. Since this one is a voltage source, this one is a voltage source, to off it, I will short it. Now I have this circuit. I have this 4 ampere here. I want to determine I01 here. Now I have 5 I0. This one is 5 I0. But since I am doing for I01, the current contributed by this source here is going to be 5 I01. Now, how can I solve it? To solve it, you use any method that you will learn before. Any method that we learn before, you can use it. Let's, for example, use the mesh analysis. I have this one, I1. I have this one, I2. I have this one, I3. 3 mesh. It's up to someone can start here, I1, I3, I1, I2. It's no problem. Now let's go. If we see this I3 is going the same direction with this 4 ampere. So mean that I3 is going to be equal 4 ampere. Now let's take this mesh 1. In this mesh here, in loop 1, in loop 1, I will have this one is going to be 5 watts I1 minus I3, because the 5 is between the loop 1 and loop 3, plus these two, this one, which is 1 I1 minus I2, plus this one is going to be in the positive, plus 5 I0 5I01, pardon, 5I01. I have to replace the 5I01. There's I01, if you see here, is the opposite of I1. You see, is the opposite of I1. So it's going to be replaced by minus 5I1 equal 0. Now, if we come to loop 2, I3 I have the value, I can replace directly, mean that I will have only I1 as unknown and I2 as unknown. If I come to loop 2, I will have this voltage across this resistor, which will be I2 plus this one come for this resistor, because they will come this side, plus 1 I2 minus I1. Why I start I2? Because I am in loop 2 minus I1. Now, if this one is coming to the source, this one is going to come to the source, is going to be in the negative terminal. It's going to be minus 5I01, but the sense which is minus 5I01, you replace I01, it's going to be I01, we saw it will be the opposite of I1, so this one is going to be replaced by minus 5I1. This minus and this minus become plus 5I1 equal 0. So I will have minus 5I01. I01 is equal minus I1. So I will minus and minus become plus. Is going to be plus 5I1. Now I have this equation again. This equation. If I have this equation, I will determine the value of I1 and the value of I2. Now, if I determine the value of I1 and the value of I2, I01, as I see here, I01 is going to be equal minus I1. This one, I01 is the opposite of minus 1, I1. So now I found I01. I have to found I02. To find I02, now I will off this one. This one is going to be off. When it's going to be off? By what? By open circuit, since it is a current source. So my circuit now is going to be in this case. It's going to be like this one. This one is going to be off. This one is going to be off. When this one is off, the one will be, this one will be my source. Here I will put my source, which is plus negative plus minus 20 volt. Now I have this one. I have to use which one? Here it is open. No need to, because it is your current source. Here now it's going to be here I02. Now I have I02. If I have I02, which method I'm going to use? I can use some method. Mesh, I can use here again. If I use here, I can determine I1 and determine I2. And if I determine I1 and determine I2, the value of I02 is going to be minus I01. We already see the video how to use the mesh analysis. mesh analysis. I'm requesting, if someone couldn't understand here, to go back in the video of mesh analysis for better understanding and come back to solve this, to find the equation of this mesh. I have only this mesh, another mesh here, so I will have I1 and I2 as my unknown. When I get I1, mean that I02 is going to be minus I1 here, because my I1 is going the opposite of I02. Now if I have I01, I have I02, I will determine the value of I0, because the value of I0 is the summation of both I01 and I02. Well, the only thing that we have to also keep in mind, when there is dependent source, we keep it as is. Secondly, when we already off the source, we'll use any method that we saw in the previous one. Thank you for watching in this video. Next we'll go to another video.